Welcome back. With Father's Day right around the corner, a new study by Boston College reveals that more and more dads want to be present and involved from the first day of their children's lives, and they like their bosses to provide it through parental leave. And some dads even want extended paid time off. But will companies get on board with this? I am so excited to have with us today, weighing in, Dr. Brad Harrington. He's the executive director at the Boston College Center for Work and Family. It's now the country's go-to place for this kind of information. There's a hotbed of controversy around this issue. So, Dr. Harrington, how many companies now offer paternal leave?
So on average, what we're able to estimate is about 15 to 20% of companies offer some form of paid parental leave aimed at dads.
So, Dr. Harrington, you know, this has been an issue. This controversy about why don't dads get time off from work has been out there I think since the Clinton administration. I remember it popping up in the mid-'90s. But on average right now, how much paternal leave do dads now take?
Well, we did a survey, and we had about 1,000 dads participate in the survey. And the one thing that we found was that the survey we did, a lot of very progressive companies were engaged in that. So about two-thirds of the fathers had access to paid paternity leave. And of those two-thirds, virtually all of the fathers took advantage of the paid paternity leave policies that their organization had. And when we asked the fathers whether they had paid leave or not within their organization, was that something that they think organizations should provide, 99% of the fathers said yes. And we also asked them if they were looking for a new employer and thought they might have another child, would that be an important criteria, that is the availability of paid paternity leave, would that be an important criteria for their future employer? And the answer was yes.
All right, let me just back up, give the lay of the land, because we've got Father's Day coming up, and, you know, a lot of dads do want to be at home when they have babies, but, you know, there's been some reluctance on the part of companies to offer paternal leave. They feel like maternity leave is enough. So you're saying that right now this is a growing trend. We've got a fifth of the companies, according to your survey, are offering paternal leave. How many of those are paid paternal leave?
So when we looked at the ones in our study, when we talk about leave and paid paternity leave specifically, most of the organizations offered paid leave for the dads. In fact, most of them offered pay at their father's full rate.
All right, so most of them offer at the full rate. In other words, they get how much time off for paid paternal leave? So
the shortest amount of time was 3 days of the companies that we spoke with, and the longest amount of time was 12 weeks. But whether it was 3 days or 12 weeks, virtually all of them paid the fathers at 100%. And one of the things I just mentioned to you is when we asked the dads, one of the things that became very apparent to us was being paid and as close to full pay as possible was a very important criteria for the dads in terms of whether or not they would use the leave. And one of the reasons for that, as you know, is mothers don't get paid for leave in a lot of organizations in the United States because we have no national policy for parental leave. And so the dads were not being selfish, but just realistic in that if their wife was at reduced pay or no pay, they felt they needed to be paid during that time in order to sustain the family.
All right, let's put this in the context because you brought it up about, you know, I think about how the United States might compare to other Western countries. How does the United States stand versus other Western countries that offer leave, paternity leave for fathers? What is going on there?
So as you know, on parental leave in general, and let's talk about maternity just for a second, the United States is only one of 4 countries in the world that doesn't offer paid maternity leave. Does not. So we are a real outlier when we compare not only to developed countries that you would say, well, you know, they can do it or they're more socialized than we are, but even countries that are really still in the developing stages offer paid leave for moms. When we look at the global data, about 70 countries now offer paid paternity leave as well, and of course we're not one of those either.
Can you name some of the countries that offer paid paternity leave for fathers?
It would be easier to tell you who doesn't, but Portugal, Japan, the UK, Sweden, Norway, Germany, Singapore. I could just keep going because there's such a long list of organizations that offer paid leave for dads these days. Of countries that do.
Dr. Harrington, for how many years or decades have other countries been offering paid paternity leave for their fathers?
So I think the earliest country to get on board with this was around 1980, and that was Sweden. Most countries...
What year was that, by the way?
I think 1980.
Oh, 1980, got it.
And I may be off by a year or two, but it's pretty close to that period of time. So they've been in the business for over 30 years. More of the countries have probably developed paid paternity leave in, say, the last 10 to 15 years. But increasingly, you see more and more of the countries, certainly in Western Europe, jumping on board with it.
You know, the pushback on this, because we are a capitalist economy, could be, you know, why are we following the Swedish model? It's a socialist model. Wouldn't that wreck our U.S. economy? We're already in a very shaky recovery. This is not the immaculate recovery that the administration has been talking about. It has not been cinematically picture perfect. Can we afford to have paid paternity leave for American companies? Even though they have huge cash piles. I get that too.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, if you want to pick on Sweden, who has one of the most generous policies, you would also say that the prosperity in that country is very high. So they do have different stances on these issues than the United States, but their stance toward being more generous for parental leave does not seem to have hurt their economy at all. And when you come to the issue of can we afford to do it, I think that argument was played out in virtually everything we do in the United States when it comes to national policy. Can we afford to raise minimum wage? Can we afford to offer, you know, health insurance for employees and so forth? So this is just another situation where the question is, of course we can afford to do it. It just depends on where your priorities are. And if the priorities are that, you know, being with your children, bonding with them, and having time to spend with your children early in their life is an important priority, then it's something you spend money on. And if it's not, then you don't.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Harrington. That was a terrific interview. I really appreciate your time. And if you, dear viewer, you want more on this study, check out the new dad.org site. It's got a lot of information. Also, I'm going to give a plug for myself. I wrote a book. It's called Skirting Heresy, The Life and Times of Marjorie Kemp. Life and Times of Marjorie Kemp. You can get it on Amazon. Yes, I am shameless, but I think you might enjoy this book. It shows what was going on in Catholic England right before Joan of Arc was executed. I'm Elizabeth MacDonald. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.